Hey. Okay, I tried 1,000 different things and could not get this to work out. So I'm glad it's finally working. And I am just going to jump in. As I said in my little introduction, I kept waiting for the perfect moment to create a video and just the perfect background. As you can tell, nothing's perfect. But I have had it on my heart to share my journey with autism because when I found out that my son Noah was being diagnosed with autism, I kept going to YouTube and watching other videos from other moms. And it was kind of my only source of comfort because only she understood what I was going through. And so I wanted to come on here. If everything, I'm a perfectionist, so even though everything's not perfect, I am just jumping in there. I don't even have an outline, but I want to start from the beginning, which is, first of all, that I am married to an evangelist, Joe Oden, and since we got married, I would watch people get healed, even through my life, when I would pray for people on the job or in my neighborhood or various things. I watched people get healed. And in his ministry, I was watching people get healed. So with me, no, my son, his name is Noah. I did not know that anything was wrong with him at all. When I would do the little charts, when the doctors would come in, on his monthly checkups, it would say, is he saying 5 words? Yep. He's saying ball and dog and, certain things. So I thought he's meeting, he crawled early, he walked early. I thought he was okay. And then when a 2-year-old came to our house to invite him to a birthday party, he was able to kind of communicate back and forth with his mother. And I realized that she was able to ask him questions and he was responding. And at that moment, because they were like a week apart, I realized that my son could not do that. And that now, as the journey went on, I began learning that my son could label things. And that's why I was saying he knows 50 words, because he could say this is a spray bottle, or this is a computer, or that is a book, or that is a picture. But he could not say the word that is. Like anything that did not have a physical thing he could see, he could not understand what, if you have a child with autism, you'll understand that. But if you're new to the autism world and learning, you'll learn that in the basicness of it, they know objects, they know things that they can see, but they do not understand all of these filler words that help us to communicate with one another. And he, looking back, I look back and I know that my son Noah, he did not look at strangers and ever smile. It was only for me, or maybe my dad, maybe my mom, people that he was used to seeing and that was comfortable, that tickled him and played with him a lot. Those are the people that were able to get smiles out of him, but he never looked at strangers and smiled. He never pointed his finger to say he wants something. I look back now and think about the areas that he was different and I just didn't know. He was my very first baby. And honestly, autism would have never even been on my radar. So I wasn't watching for it. And he was cute and giddy and fun. Honestly, he really was full of life for me. He's interacting with me, and I read his mind, and you would understand that if you're an autism mom, that you're reading their mind for them and you're always thinking ahead for them, and you're making up the difference since they don't point and they don't communicate and say want that or want baba, or they might just say baba. When I realized he wasn't speaking, I got this series called Baby Babble, and I do recommend it. It's a Baby Babble, like an DVD system of some speech pathologists who created this DVD system. And I would play those videos, and thankfully, uniquely, I don't know if your child is like this, but Noah was obsessed with like watching Baby Einstein videos and anything interactive video wise, even from the age of 5 months old. I remember going on a plane and turning something on, and he would just get glued to it. And everyone walking by would say, I've never seen a child just like stay so glued. And I would be like, yeah, he's just unique. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought this is the only way I can keep him still. So, because he would get bored, and he wasn't the baby that I could take into church and just lay there that would just look at me and be happy looking at me. He was the one I'm bouncing in the back and walking around to keep him to just chill. So anyway, at that point, when I realized that my son was not able to communicate with some of those filler words, I reached out to ESS, which is the intervention place in my area. And up until age 3, you can have early intervention services, early child development, I think is what it's called. I can't remember exactly, but they will come and kind of look at them, diagnose them. So they can't totally diagnose them, but they can begin offering services. So they came in, and I'll never forget the day that they told me Noah was maybe 2 years and 3 months old by the time they could get to him. And they told me that he's either 16 or 18 months behind. I cannot remember which one, but they said socially he is, we'll just say 18 months behind. And I remember thinking, you're telling me that he is socially like a 9-month-old. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried. I knew something was wrong, and they could not tell me it's autism. They would hint at things and like encourage me to Google and encourage me to watch things to find out on my own what was going on. But they did not want to say, hey, I'm sorry, but your child has autism. Instead, they could just say he's 18 months behind in these areas. And because I'm married to someone who moved in the healing power, I went through a huge season. I mean, you guys, definitely those first maybe 7, 8 years. So until Noah was maybe 7 or 8, that I hid his diagnosis. I didn't tell anyone, because I didn't want to label him one thing. I was believing for his healing. But second, I didn't want to mess up other people's faith that God was going to heal them, although he wasn't healing our child. And there was also the journey of, is it God's will to heal? Like, because God created him like that, and all of the good things and perfect things that come from him. And he was such a cute little guy in his own way, and his unique personality and quirks. And now he's older. I'll get to that. But I didn't sometimes know how to pray. And I think for so many days and days and days and days, I just prayed healing over him. And I still do for his brain. But there was definitely that season of, do I pray healing, or do I just accept how he is and thank God for how he is and stop? I went through all the different emotions. And then I, unfortunately, hopefully this isn't the case for you, but when he was 3, I took him to the local school area to be officially tested and put into their system, because he was aging out of the in-home care that was going to come to my home. And when I did, they put him moderate to severe autism. And gosh, it just takes me back to those moments, you guys. I didn't expect to get emotional at all. But I remember immediately calling parents and family, telling them what was going on and what he had finally, at least by the school district, been officially diagnosed with several different things, speech delay and ADHD and autism and just all these things, sensory things, and it all kind of comes in together. But unfortunately, I had some family members, I had different people in my life that did not accept his diagnosis, and kind of attacked me for accepting his diagnosis, and as if I wasn't a good Christian, or maybe I wasn't a good mother, because I was believing what they were saying was the problem with my son. So that meant I wasn't always getting that emotional support that you need. And as mothers, like I know, there was a lady that I wasn't even connected to, barely knew her. And I remember sharing the new diagnosis of my son with her at lunch, which I wasn't telling many people, but it was so new and I was so broken and had been crying so much and battling it alone because um, anyway, I remember her response. She said, "I am so sorry." And that was literally the best thing I've ever heard from someone, to be honest with you, when I shared with them that my son had autism. And everyone else did not know what to say. They don't know what to say, and it's not their fault. But this pastor's wife, she knew what to say, and she said, "I'm so sorry." And it's like it stuck with me so hard because those were the words I needed to hear. I needed to hear, I'm sorry that you're going to have to go through this, because it felt in those moments like my child had died, even though he was alive, because I had these dreams and hopes of him playing sports and doing all these things and having, just all the things of your firstborn son. You think of all the things that you want them to do, and it literally comes crashing down to where you think, will he ever move out of my home? Will he ever drive a car? Will he ever get married? Will he even live a normal life? Your whole life kind of flips upside down, and then no one even knows what to say to you. And then on top of that, I didn't want to tell many people because I don't want to hurt our ministry. So that is kind of the beginning journey. So thankfully, as the few people that I would tell and that actually would just kind of sympathize with me and did not argue with me that my son had a disability, they would begin walking me through like what their son did and teach me new things. And the best thing that ever happened to me, and I would encourage you, especially, of course, and I hope all of you are Christians, that my prayer in this moment is where I feel like my prayer life, I've always had a strong prayer life, but this is when sometimes we ask God the questions of why. And in those moments, I would just feel his overwhelming presence upon me, just on me, that nothing was sufficient, if that makes sense. Like nothing could challenge his goodness or the circumstances or if he's real or anything else, because I would just feel his presence and his comfort. And now that Noah is now 12, I can now look back and see where God was orchestrating my steps. And the first thing that ended up happening was we ended up moving homes, and that's a long story. But when we moved homes, they built a brand new school right behind our neighborhood. And when they did, I was like, oh, that's a nice school. Well, sure enough, Noah eventually ended up needing to go there. And the lady who was over his program was actually my husband's boss, which was the superintendent of the AG for North Texas. It was his daughter over my son's program. So she was able to help put him in the classes that he needs, kind of oversee his program. And I just saw that as such being the hand of God. And my doctor, or I'm sorry, Noah's pediatrician, one day she was not there. And sometimes you know how you have a whole practice that sees your child. One day I go to this certain doctor, I'll leave her name out. And it wasn't Noah's doctor, it was another lady that worked with her. And I'd gone to her a few times and I could tell that she was extremely sweet, and something about her was different. I just didn't know it was because she was a Christian. That area is known to be a Christian hospital, actually. So I knew she was Christian, but the level of that. Well, anyway, she said, one day she says, "Trisha, can we go off the record after?" So, and if you're an autism mom, again, you get this. One of the hardest things about the autism journey, because Noah did not communicate or talk until he was probably like 5 years old, is from the age of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, he would randomly run these bad fevers, and I would just have to take him to the doctor and say, "Can you figure out what's wrong?" Because he can't tell me what hurts. He can't tell me if his throat hurts. He can't tell me if his ear hurts. We're just going to have to figure it out. And that's where it was like, okay, so yeah, we got to figure it out. Well, so she says, Trisha, can I talk to you off the record? And I said, sure. And she said, Noah is going to talk again. He's going to talk one day. And I know a lady that can help him to where he will not, it won't be this situation anymore. And she tells me about a lady in her Baptist church that had a team that worked out of California with this Lagos ABA, but it did not go under insurance. And it was, when I called and checked, it was $2,000 a month to get him these services in my home. And our insurance didn't cover it. I didn't have a good job. We had to have whatever insurance that got kind of the government gives you when you're in ministry. Sometimes you don't, have the benefit. I was a paralegal and I had amazing insurance, but that changed. And I just bought a vehicle. So I tell them I've got to try to get this vehicle paid off and then we will see what we can afford. And just to skip all that story, God allowed me to do this little side job that produced, I'll just say it was Plexus. And I'll leave that whole story out, but I ended up getting $1,500 to $2,000 a month on Plexus within like 6 months of starting it. And it dried up the minute he was done with the ABA therapy. So I know without a doubt it was God's provision. And I've noticed and seen on this journey that God, instead of taking away my problem, he has given me provision instead. And so he has provided through it all instead of just taking it away. And over and over again, I have seen him do that. And when we lived there in the Dallas area, Noah did not. He was sweet in his school and everyone loved him, but at the same time, he was never invited to anyone's birthday party naturally because he couldn't communicate. I remember taking him to birthday parties when he was 2 and 3 and 4. And always I was forced to give him a phone. I was forced to because he just would do anything but interact with the kids. He was not interested in kids and socializing at all. If he walked into a room, he did not see the people in the room. He saw the objects in the room. He is the kid that if I change anything in my home, he is the first to notice it because he notices things and objects more than people. I was trying to think of what else I would want to say. I will say it's okay to have meltdown moments. Joe traveled on the road, so a lot of times I was handling things on my own, like a single mom, on the weekends, and then he went to the office during the week too. But there were times where I tried to get Noah and my other daughter swimming lessons, and I remember the teacher kept saying, "Stay in the water. You got to stay right here until it's your turn." And Noah could not understand weight all he could understand was water. And, he didn't know what take turn means. He couldn't see a turn. And so he kept just jumping in the water, kept jumping in the water, kept jumping in the water. Well, there's 15 kids being taught how to swim, and he couldn't understand the teacher. So I remember just having to get him. And then I just remember getting in the car and crying at him. I wasn't yelling at him, but I was crying and just like, why Noah? Why Noah? Just why Noah? And, I'll remember his little face just looking at me like, I'm so, he just didn't even know what to say. But I eventually heard the words, "I love you," when he was, I think, 4. Uniquely, he could read. Because he was watching Baby Babble, Baby Can Read, all of the Baby Einstein videos. And I think the Baby Can Read kind of taught him how to sight read. So like if we were driving down the road, he'd go, "Mom," or maybe he wouldn't say mom, but he would say saltgrass, or he would just read signs, "Stop." And I would always be like, wow, this kid can read at the age of 3. So that ended up working in his favor. And so when the ABA therapy team would come into our home, they would kind of like do these little flashcards and say, "Noah, what is your name?" And he would read, "My name is Noah. What is your name?" And that's how he learned. He learned how to communicate day by day for 2 years, reading how to respond to people. And then so anyway, fast forward to now. Of course, he didn't get invited to birthday parties. eventually he was old enough to realize that his little sister was being invited and had tons of friends and he didn't. And he would be upset or sit at the front door, wait, or if he found out there was a birthday party and he wasn't invited, he would just go into meltdown, tears, crying so bad that he did not get to sing happy birthday to them or give them a gift, but he wasn't invited. And so there was so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've had a broken heart as his mother watching him not be understood or things like that. So, but the cool thing is when we moved here to where we are now in the district in Missouri that we're in, for the sixth grade, I prayed about it real hard if I should put him in these schools because no Christian schools could take him. His IEP is too severe. It's not, even though I wish he would come home right now and begin talking to you guys. If you knew him, you would think, oh, he's very high functioning. And the doctor did say that even though he tests moderate to severe, in person, he's very high functioning and he's funny and he's just quirky. So Noah communicates amazing now. Every now and then he'll add a filler word like edited, or he'll say silly things that are inappropriate or just don't fit. Or even asking someone something that does not, like the other day I had someone at my house that I'm on the prayer team with, and he says, just, who are you? Why are you here? He wants to know like who they are and why they're here, instead of the simple way of, hi, what's your name? But anyway, when I prayed about it a lot, and I ended up putting him in the sixth grade here at the school, since I cannot put him in a Christian program. When I tried homeschooling him with his siblings, I noticed he needed my undivided attention. And I will say also that in the schools, it also taught me that they were not really teaching him how to spell. They weren't working with his reading as much. They were making so many handicap things for him that he kind of wasn't, and still isn't, learning all of those things. However, after I worked with him on just spelling the simple what, why, where, when, I literally worked with him on what, why, where, and when probably every day for 6 months, and he still cannot spell them. So he does have a spelling thing for sure, but he can sight read. Because he is sight reading, he cannot pronounce some words. He doesn't know what the words are because he didn't learn the traditional rules for reading. But trying to get to this is that when he started the sixth grade, God was so intricately involved, and he ended up in a class with I'm brand new to this area. My hairdresser's son just so happens to be in that class. I saw her on the day that we were doing the orientation, and she said, Trisha, I'll have my son look out for your son. I thought, praise the Lord, God knows, and he's got this, and I'm just so thankful. And then fast forward a couple months, he gets invited to a birthday party. And I'm like, what? He got invited to a birthday party? Like, for real? Like, I didn't believe it. Or I thought, is this a joke? Or are they just being nice, was my actual first thought. And I remember taking him and the boys kind of coming running up going, Noah's here. And I was like, oh my goodness, they actually like him. Like, I was so shocked. And he did a sleepover even. And then it was a matter of time before he was like, Mom, all my friends want to come to my house. And I kid you not, I was just like this. And then come to find out, one of them goes to our church. One of the other kids was a new friend of mine, her best friend's son. And God had given him these Christian friends and sat him up in the right exact class in this new area to make friends. And I have to say this, is that our little children, when they're 5, when they're 4, they're 3, and they cannot communicate and they cannot say words, with the right therapy and the hard work of working with them to communicate, they really do begin to communicate. And he is now, I can totally see him being able to drive one day. I can totally see him getting a job even. I think he's going to be able to do a lot of things. And I will say, all along the way, I have prayed. I have gone to war with any kind of disability, any kind of generational things. I mean, on a regular basis, when I pray, I plead the blood of Jesus and thank God for high IQs over me and my husband and my children, and that the disabilities must leave us and that not be down our generations. And I mean, I really continue praying, and maybe a lot of it of Noah's success is prayer, that he's doing so well and that he can communicate and that he's accepted with his friends and they think he's funny because he is. And he actually, guys, last year he got an award for courage. And I remember laughing, thinking his class voted on him for the one in the class with most courage. But what it is he just straight up doesn't care what any of y'all think. Because he's not wired that way. He doesn't care. And he just wants to be comfortable and he just wants to be chill and he just wants to play with animals and he's chill. And so there is a gift in the journey. There is a gift. And looking at him now, of course, I want him to be able to spell. Of course, I don't want him to struggle in school. But I absolutely love his innocence, that he has never been mean to anyone ever on purpose. He's like one time I remember taking him to speech therapy at the Baylor Waxahachie, and there was this little Down syndrome kid. And it was right after Noah had gotten diagnosed and I was getting him speech therapy until a new program took over, or even supplementing. I can't remember. It was before the ABA. And I remember there being a little Down syndrome boy. And as we walked in the door, literally they locked eyes, ran together and began hugging, and then started holding each other's hand and walking around telling everyone, best friend, best friend, best friend. And I was like, it was a unique feeling, because on one side of me, I wanted to sit in the room and cry that he was that disabled, that he just did that with the Down syndrome kid. And then on the other side of me was like, how sweet that he just made this little kid's day by being his friend today. And so there's just, there's a journey of mixed feelings, because Noah is he's my easiest child. He's very trustworthy. He doesn't lie. He's just like a rule follower. So if the swimming pool says no diving and someone dives, he'll be the first to say, hey guys, it says no diving. And of course kids will say, who cares? It says no diving. We're diving anyway. But he is not going to join. He is not going to dive. And he loves animals like a lot of autistic children do. I named him Noah because I felt in prayer before he was even born that his name should be Noah. And God is faithful there too. So I guess I don't know if this benefits anyone. Feel free to leave messages or comment. I could even do a follow-up video to this if there's specific questions you have. But I would just encourage any of you moms that, especially if you are close to the Lord and you have a relationship with Jesus, he hears your every cry. He hears your cares. He sees the levels of suffering that we endure through having a child with a disability. He hears our mama's hearts, and he works on us. He changes us. He uses the circumstances and the situations to enrich us in ways, even though it's like this thing that we see as a negative thing. And again, I will say, I am continuing to believe for full healing over Noah, that one day he will have zero sign, zero symptom of autism. I'll never stop believing for that. I'll never stop. I say, encourage it. I believe in faith. Even our church now, we're seeing miracles. I see miracles. I know that God is able, but in the moment, I just also see the sovereign hand of God. I have seen God's hand making provision all along the journey, and where it's just like, man, God's so all over that. And that is encouraging. And I know Romans 8:18 says our present sufferings are to be compared to the glory that will be revealed in us on that day. And so I think sometimes our sufferings are just not to be compared. And we don't understand. I mean, there's a lot of whys we get asked. We don't understand everything. I think it could even, I kind of think it's in our genetic, honestly. Dyslexia, ADHD, a lot of different things, speech development, all run in mine or Joe's family. And I kind of think they all combined and kind of settled on our Noah. So, and who's the firstborn? I notice autism kind of hits the firstborn boys more often. I haven't looked at the stats recently, but I know it was like 1 in 60, and then it was like 1 in 49, I think, that boys were being diagnosed with it. So I know it's extremely prevalent. And I just want to encourage you moms to hang in there, keep praying, do everything you can for your child, get them to therapy, get them in speech, don't go hide and pretend that there's not an issue and not get them the help they need. Because Noah, I wish I could put him right here now. He's at school, but he's doing great. He is going to thrive in life, and it is not the end of the world. That diagnosis is just a diagnosis. Yes, you know what? Noah is able. He got officially diagnosed at the age of like 9 or 10, where he actually qualifies for Social Security the rest of his life. But do you know what? I don't even want him to know that. I want him to try and do his very best, because I think he can. I think he'll never even need to tap into that. Now, of course, if that comes, I'll let him know, but I don't think he needs it. I think on paper, sometimes when they test our children, they are testing them based on these book things, and it's all by the book, and it doesn't factor in prayer, and it factors on this one moment with your child and not every day with your child. And I just, I don't know. I don't even know what I wanted to say to everyone, but I just want to encourage any other mama's hearts that are dealing with this diagnosis and feel like it's the end of the world, that it is not the end of the world, and everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. And I know some children on the spectrum are much different than others, but I still feel like early intervention makes such a big difference and pays off. And I'll even add this. There was a season of time where I cared so much, and I felt almost like the Lord said, Trisha, my grace is sufficient for the ones who need it. And my grace is sufficient for Noah, and my grace is sufficient for you. So if I try to carry Noah's burden and Noah's things that he's dealing with, if I try to carry his issues and try to, I don't know how that makes sense, but if I'm carrying his burden on top of my own, I can't. It's too heavy. So it's like God's going to give him grace for his journey through life. God's got him. God's got your child. God has them. You don't have to worry about them. And I think no matter how disabled they are, through the prayer and the trust and the faith, God will bring healing, and God will bring provision. And that's just, he's an amazing God, and he cares about them more than we do. So anyway, I'm hoping this blesses somebody, if it's ever even seen by anyone. So anyway, feel free to comment, message, share anything, if you feel led, and I will do my best to kind of comment or even do a follow-up video if anyone needs it. All right. Bye-bye. Have a blessed day.